Our panel today is Words Not Required, Visual Search Revolutionizes E-Commerce. My name is Liz O'Neill. I am Senior Solutions Manager for Digital Commerce at Lucidworks, and I'm going to be the moderator today.
Hi, I'm Katie Boschel. I'm a project manager at Lucidworks specializing in e-commerce.
I'm Aaron Aguilard. I'm head of partnerships at Syte, a visual AI company.
Rainier Paua, VP of Technology and Search at Getty Images.
Candace Marks. I work with Rainier at Getty Images. I'm a principal product manager.
And I'm going to just do kind of a little icebreaker. Katie, I'm going to start with you. Tell me something, tell me an interesting fact about yourself.
Interesting fact. I was a state champion and nationally ranked go-kart driver when I was a teenager. So I don't talk about that very much. But.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow. My name's Aaron Aguilard. I recently adopted a Lucidworks puppy. I was given very short notice about the icebreaker, and I said that's far too little time to develop a personality and become interesting. So I'll pass it on.
I don't know if you guys were in my session yesterday, but my home office used to be a science lab, so I converted it from a science lab to a home office. DIY addict.
There you go.
I have participated at elite level in running and cycling and have once made the silver medal in the Canadian Duathlon Championships.
So I used to work for HBO back in the day of Sex and the City. I've just dated myself. But the four ladies all had photo approval. And all four didn't often approve the same photos. And so I had some fun removing Kim Cattrall's head from one photo and putting it onto her body in a different photo so we could get approval from all four.
Awesome. Are there anyone in the audience, or is there anyone in the audience that's familiar with visual search? Guy in the back in the purple. Do you just kind of want to tell me what you know about visual search? Just kind of like high level or maybe more in depth? Is there an extra microphone? There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Charlie from Open Source Connections. I used to run another search company, and we worked for a big retailer who basically sold furniture. And they had a design application, so you could build your perfect room and then select furniture to go in it. And we built a way of indexing 3D models using 3D spatial harmonics or spherical harmonics, I can't remember, which is a cool way of doing search, but with no words. It was trying to get the qualities out of the image and then using that to do a similarity search. Huh. So I've always had an interest in this area.
Awesome. Anyone else? No? All right. Aaron, I'm going to start with you. Why do you think visual search is important?
So visual search is a lot of things to a lot of people, and I think that that's one of the main things to take into consideration when we're talking about visual search. Depending on your audience as a retailer, when I'm speaking, I'm typically thinking from the retailer's perspective, in particular because Syte, our focus is really in that space. And in an e-commerce context, a retail context, there are many different ways that people are going to discover products. And products like apparel, home decor, as you correctly mentioned, and many other different types of products that are part of a decision criteria that's led by a visual preference by the consumer. These are the categories usually where being able to use those images that consumers are finding around the web in real life as the inspiration for search can be most significant and most impactful for retail.
Thank you. I guess as a follow-up, what is important to the consumer experience in a retail context?
In a retail context, relevance. That's the ultimate factor that is going to make the consumer journey valuable. The results they need to deliver on sort of the implicit promise of visual search. When you offer the ability to use an image as the source of your search, it's that experience has to mimic or even improve upon the experience of walking into a retail location and saying, do you have anything that looks like this? Or, picking up something off of the shelf and saying, well, I love this sweater, but, do you have anything slightly different? Do you have something in my size? Or anything of that nature?
Thank you. Rainier, I recently learned that Getty Images actually adopted visual search many years ago. How are you using visual search? I guess is the first part of the question. And if you can just explain to me or tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say we're fully adopted. I think that we'll never be literally done with this adoption, but the journey has definitely been a long one. I've been with Getty for 10 years. Before that, a little company called Autonomy, working on search, and came over to Getty and iStock Photo, and we had a small problem at the time. It was about 1 million assets, 1 million photos that we had to index. Wrote our own little search engine, which was no unstructured data. It was all metadata, tags on images. This we could store in a MySQL database and or do full text searching, and so that's fine at a small scale. But as it grew, as things tended to do in the heyday of the .com era, this wasn't going to be enough. So we integrated with Getty Images, iStock Photo and Getty Images. Now serve about 250 million images up. Still with no structured or unstructured data about it. So we get captions, they're largely unreliable. We get some keywords supplied by our contributors. They may or may not be accurate. So there's a lot of work that goes into image extraction, entity extraction, trying to get the right keywords off of the images, and then present that to in a way that customers can interact with it. So this is keywords not required. However, we have, of that 250 million, each one has approximately 50 keywords on it. That's 12.5 billion keyword asset combinations, but it's still not enough. People still have trouble describing visually what they see and what they're looking for. So if it's something, a certain visual style or a certain, if you went to the color conversation yesterday, just describing the colors you want is hard enough. And getting alignment between the different assets, and one contributor calls it periwinkle, and the other one calls it something else. And so really getting into that customer journey and understanding how they are looking for content has been the biggest part for us. So you'll see later on in some of these slides how Getty Images has done that. Is you still have the traditional keyword box, but you can also search by image. So this could be something like you've taken a picture with your camera. You want to know, is this Lincoln Memorial or is this some other building that I see? Or you've seen this on the web somewhere, maybe on a competitor site, and you want to see if Getty Images has it for sale.
Thank you. Candace, the next question is for you. Getty Images is not a standard e-com retailer. Who we're kind of seeing adopt this newer technology. How does visual search help you stand out from your competition or competitors?
Yeah, so building off of what Rainier was saying, we have keywords at Getty Images, and we likely, given the depth and breadth of our content, have exactly what you're looking for. But because we have so much content, getting at exactly what you're looking for is really difficult. It's solving the problem of, I know it when I see it, right? So you'll see these two images here side by side, and the keywords in purple are those that are shared. So if you were to do a search using senior Latina woman, you would get both images. But there's something subtle in each of these photos, the photos on the left being highly authentic and the photos on the right being a bit more stocky. You'll notice there's something about the pose, there's something about the smile, there's something about the composition, the lighting, that makes an image authentic versus tight, stocky, feels false. And that's what brands come to us for. They're looking for those images that feel real, feel diverse, feel authentic. And the best way to do that today is through some way of telling the computer, the search, that I'm looking for this type of attribute versus I'm looking for this keyword. Yeah? Cool.
Thank you. Katie, being a retail expert, what are some of the brands you've seen that have been, adopting visual search? And as a follow-up, who do you feel is doing it well?
Yeah, so I'm a shopper. I love clothes. I love the way clothes make me feel. And so I do a lot of retail shopping via visual search. Candace, I see you walking down the hall and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this jacket. But, what kind of retailer would I go to? And then I have to navigate down to blazers. And then I got to hunt through and either narrow on yellow or lapel, like the lapel. And it's like, if I could just take a visual picture of it and scan it into a site and be able to find it. So I do a lot of shopping online via visual search. I have a trunk club stylist. And so I'm able to ingest those pictures to them, and they actually send me back products that are going to show me exactly what I want to do. So I know a lot of the fashion retailers are utilizing it. The other avenue I use visual search in, Amazon. Amazon is doing such a good job with visual search. We were sitting at dinner the other night at a Greek restaurant. I can't think of the name of it, but it was right around the corner while we were in DC, and they had beautiful blue plates. They were white plates and then had a blue kind of picture design, and we were able to take a picture, a visual image of it, and get results back. And so it was very interesting to kind of satisfy that I want this, I need this, and take the picture and be able to get results back. Because I think sometimes our purchase decisions are very feeling driven. And so when you can satisfy that feeling almost immediately when I'm sitting at dinner looking at somebody's plates that I love, that purchase is almost instantaneous. So for me, I've got blue plates from Amazon on the way to my house.
That's awesome. Aaron, what is the biggest impact of visual search for e-commerce retail?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question because visual search itself is I think the impact of that particular use case is very strong in terms of discovery, driving the consumer to exactly the right products, the ones that have inspired them, and giving them sort of the versatility of being able to look for a combination of things that might otherwise be difficult to find, if they were just to try to navigate through the website in other ways, especially in an apparel situation. If you see, we do a lot of image searches on social media, and yet I still haven't committed to memory the name of any influencers. So I always default back to Kim Kardashian, right? So if a shopper is interested in looking like Kim Kardashian or however she looked last week, but obviously is not going to the designers that put together her outfit, they can easily put that into a retailer's website, let's say an Forever 21 website, and then find similar items that will still style well together, still have that same overall look, but obviously at a price point that they're willing to complete the purchase at. That being said, I think visual search is sort of a misnomer, because what's really happening in the background is more of the utilization of image recognition, and deeper than that, it's product recognition. So it's being able to not just look at an entire image as a single item, but rather understand what are the individual shoppable products that are there available within the retailer's catalog, and then being able to match those products with specifically the products that are most relevant to that shopper's need and inspiration.
Thank you. Rainier, talk me through how someone would use visual search on gettyimages.com.
Yeah, did you want to try pulling it up? Live demo?
We can.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have an image.
Any that you feel willing to share on your
Didn't
computer?
pull that one up.
No, okay.
So I have to go
Throw
to
a curveball.
my email.
I can talk through it if
Yeah,
you.
if you don't mind.
No, of course. So again, there's a couple of workflows that our customers will typically do on Getty Images. As I said, they'll typically start with typing in what searches they're looking for, and that's certainly the mental model that most of our customers have adopted. But a lot of times they can't quite describe certain elements of the imagery that they're looking for, and Laquita took a great picture of us at the as we're sitting here on the panel. Very stocky. We were both smiling and my eyebrow lifted and looking at the camera. Not very authentic. And then some of our customers they do want more candid shots, and you'll get into some of that as well. But it's sometimes hard to describe. So a lot of our customers are like, oh no, I don't like how that looks, or that's a little too dark, or a little too macabre, or a little too. They don't look like they're taking it seriously, or that doesn't look like how my CEO looks, or that's not how my family looks. So there's things that the customers really struggle with to articulate in words. And that's when visual search is handy for them. So they'll go and they'll take imagery that they've got, and they'll use that to search. And so on Getty Images, there's a little camera icon next to the search bar, and they can drag photography into there. Can't see it on here. And what that does is it uses a deep neural net, and we've fingerprinted all of our assets. And so we've taken our entire collection and basically done a nearest neighbor, or approximate nearest neighbor comparison to say, well, look, this is visually similar using certain visual features that we've used to categorize our content. And so a picture of 5 attractive people sitting on a panel, that's what I'm looking for. You might find similar stuff like that with the certain backgrounds or certain lighting, certain compositions. So that's a prevalent use case, and we hear customers starting to do this more and more. It's not the default way. As I said, a lot of our customers have a job to do, so they're not relying on that in order to find out if it's a midi dress or whatever these things are. They're looking for a visual style that they can't articulate with. But it's becoming more and more prevalent. So we do a lot of work with the fashion industry. So we're at events like the Met Gala, Cannes Film Festival. There are Ralph Lauren. There's all these different brands walking around. We have partnerships. We have deals with them. We have customers that are looking for that content, and so they need to be able to look and identify those brands. We need to identify them when we're indexing them and tagging them, and they need to be able to find them as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Candace, you have a lot of experience in digital product management, 8 years to be exact. What are your thoughts on visual search technology overall?
Yeah, so building a little bit off of what Aaron was saying, the tools behind visual search, computer vision, are involved in a number of different things in AI today. So for example, autonomous driving is using computer vision and object recognition to know where there's a stop sign or where there's a person crossing. It's amazing in that it cracks open the world of how we can interact both on and offline. But as Stan Lee said, with great power comes great responsibility. So there are a couple of use cases nowadays where we know that governments or law enforcement are using facial recognition, oftentimes with mistaken identity. So we have to be on top of that when we're training our training sets. But it can also be used for good. Computer vision can, in that there was recently a study by Penn Medicine where they were looking at Twitter users' profiles, and they were noticing those images that were grayscale or had flat affect, just low fidelity, generally were indicators of people who had depression or anxiety. So there's a lot of really compelling ways to use computer vision beyond just searching for clothing and photos. And I'm super excited about, I talked at the top about the ability to know it when you see it. If you already see it in your head, how can you communicate that with an image and pull it back? So I find that really, really exciting. It's a great time to be in tech.
Interesting. Katie, where are e-commerce retailers missing the boat with visual search?
So I come from a home improvement background, and kind of any use case where you have that do-it-yourself. We kind of talked about it a few weeks ago, parts. car parts, and, home improvement parts, things like that. I don't know how many of you, I'm a semi do-it-yourselfer. And I will take something apart or something's broken. Like my husband, my dryer broke and the belt was what I had broke and he took it apart himself. So to be able to take a picture of that belt or take a picture of that car part or a hardware bolt that you need and you need 6 more of them and kind of take that image and know exactly what you're getting back. I think I am not seeing a lot of visual search in kind of that space. And I think there's value in those areas because I wouldn't know what to call it or exactly, if it's what the name of the bolt is or how long the bolt is, and using that visual search to identify exactly what I need or know what kind of belt I needed for the dryer. It is a really, really value add for some of these e-commerce retailers in those spaces.
I would tend to agree with that, by the way. There's a big opportunity there.
Yeah, especially since a lot of them don't have like the SKU or part number there as well. So you really don't have a choice but to just kind of stare at the belt and go, I don't even know what to call this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually applies in a B2B context as well.
Okay.
I mean, there's obviously the consumer value for that, but you can imagine that also being very useful if, I don't know, aviation engineer needs to buy a certain specific part, doesn't know exactly what it's called at that moment, just being able to snap a shot and get the right results from their suppliers would be very, very valuable.
Absolutely. The topic, the social media topic. Katie, maybe I'll start with you. Social media, how does it tie into visual search?
I think it goes back to what I was talking about earlier with feeling. Social media gives you a feeling. We want to look like some of the social influencers. We want to feel good about ourselves, and sometimes being able to take a picture of a gorgeous pair of shoes and be like, I have to have those. Like, I need those in my life. That feeling, that instantaneous feeling and gratification of being able to purchase it just by taking a picture of somebody walking down the street, or the social media, this influencer was wearing this gorgeous jacket, but I can't afford a Ralph Lauren or a Saint Laurent. Give me something that would be similar to this style so I can rock that look as well. So I think that going back to the feelings that social media can create, and then the visual search can help satisfy.
Aaron?
I think, remind me the question.
Like social
You
media,
answered
how do you, social media, how does it tie into visual search?
So in the context of social media, I think that's actually a big driver of where the market is going. It starts with Gen Z. It starts with the very digital native user, but more and more we're seeing that people of all ages, all generations are influenced in different situations by what's going on online, whether it's social media, per se, or just other catalogs that they might see online or offline. And as people go to, let's say, design their new home or their new interior, we see a lot of even baby boomer or older generations making these collages of images, sort of getting all these different inspirations as a preparation for their new remodeling, and having that shoppable is the quickest and most frictionless way for them to explore what's available and find their new home look, just by way of one example. And there's lots of others like that have started to incorporate, broader generations. But that being said, social media is really driving that need for a quicker way to explore and discover products. And I think that image recognition and a lot of the use cases around that are about driving the initial discovery and the earlier phases of the product decision cycle, and then pairing those with exactly some of the solutions that I'm sorry, I didn't recall your name, but the use cases that you were describing is a perfect way to continue that same visual journey and sort of make it a holistic visual experience where the consumer can easily discover, decide, and then evaluate, is this going to fit my space, using all different types of 3D recognition and that type of stuff. So you were onto something very early.
I just mention one of the use cases was where people would see an amazing piece of furniture, but it cost $3,000.
Right.
They want something that's shaped the same sort of shape, that would fit their house, the same sort of colour. And there's a way then to say, right, well, what's like this for cheaper?
Yeah, exactly.
You can design your perfect room full of designer furniture and then buy it for a lot less money.
Exactly.
I was gonna say, how many of us use Pinterest to and have the different boards for oh, I want, my holiday decorations or what to wear to work. And it's to be able to take those images and kind of search them, whether it be home decor. That's when you started talking about that. I was like, oh yeah, I've got my Pinterest board set up for how I want Christmas to look this year. So being able to purchase straight from those images and kind of ingest them and say, yes, I want this look, give it to me.
Yeah, exactly. And who amongst the average consumer knows, tuft backing and mid-century versus postmodern, or, you don't need to know all that. And even if you were to search some of those terms, half the time they wouldn't be tagged that way on the retailer's website anyways. So, yeah.
Cool. Rainier?
Yeah, I mean, some interesting correlations there, and we've only met recently, but our industry, we're selling imagery. Getty is trying to move the world with imagery. So certainly from an influencer perspective, we see social media drive a lot of what we do. So whether that's Trump is at it again and we need to cover it, or there's a sporting event happening, social media is generating content that we need to adapt to as well, and not just requests that come to us about it, but also they're generating imagery themselves. And to Charlie's point, there's open source, if you will, imagery, and then there's more premium imagery, and it's differentiating between that quickly. But the other thing is, I think that we have a social responsibility to feed back to those social streams. So, for example, some of the work we do with stereotyping and bias. So when certain people search for things visually, are we going to reinforce some of those stereotypes, or are we going to isolate and identify where those are happening and give a broad, diverse set of results back? So there's some recent articles about, if you do a search for CEO on Google Images, what do you get? You get 95% men, and they're white men. Or if you do a search for nurse or for pilot. And so a lot of imagery databases, if you will, or companies reinforce these biases. And so it's all of our responsibility as we're working with visual search to acknowledge those and to recognize those and call those out and try to dispel them. So we do a lot of work with like the Lean In collection, where we're trying to get scenes that aren't maybe underrepresented in social media today. Yeah.
Candace?
Yeah. I think that I love the idea of a feedback loop between social media and somebody like a Getty Images. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking back again to my very early experience at HBO, where the Time Warner execs really wanted to make Sex and the City shoppable because Patricia Fields had the most amazing costumes ever. And this was back in the early 2000s. And today that's becoming possible. Now, I'll put on my Getty hat for a minute because we have a picture of Kim K on screen. The way that we can use Kim Kardashian in that outfit is that media companies can produce articles about what Kim is wearing, who wore it best, what she was wearing on the street. But we actually can't make that image shoppable yet today because of legal restrictions, right? So Kim has publicity privacy approval. So I'm just thinking forward, flashing forward in terms of social media and into the Netflix, YouTube generation. How will we make moving video shoppable? And how will these laws and restrictions change? How would we enable the celebrity to say, yes, I approve this use and not that use? I sort of feel like that's the evolution, and I'm interested to see where that goes.
That's actually quite interesting. We should talk about that afterwards. Shoppable video is something that's already very, very possible today. We're actually doing that, but having the right platform, the right place to implement that, and some of the considerations about the operational logistical things around that are still things that need to be worked out fully. But in terms of the technology and the capabilities, it's there. We just have to find the right use cases. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting topic in itself, is being able to like see a picture that reminds you of something that you haven't seen in a long time. Maybe a picture of the Sandlot, but not know like the name of the movie, and be able to image that and be like, what movie is this from? And then be able to download or purchase that movie, or and watch it and kind of relive that feeling again. Back to the feelings it drives. I'm stuck on that today.
Awesome. Aaron, last question. What is your advice to retailers who are, thinking about visual search? Now obviously we're going into holiday retail, homeware. I mentioned yesterday, do not implement any new technologies now, and just kind of dive deeper into the ones you have. But what is your advice to someone who's interested to kind of implement this or even think about this for their digital strategy for 2020?
Absolutely. So, I mean, my main advice is to look very carefully from the perspective of your own context, your own consumer's perspective. Lots of times when you're looking at visual searches and you're looking at the results of any solution that you might be evaluating, it's easy to immediately respond to a specific attribute like color. Color is obviously something that people naturally respond to instantly. But when a shopper is inspired by a specific item, they are not necessarily responding to the color per se. It's one important factor amongst many others. So looking at the details of the occasion in which the garments can be worn, looking at the cut, the style, many even softer aspects and attributes that are hard to put into words. That's really the power of visual search, and that's what can drive relevancy, or the inverse thereof. So make sure that you're aware of the context of your shopper based on your particular product, and also be aware that over time, at this point, visual search does not have to be a major project to implement. It can actually be something that's very instant and very simple to integrate and incorporate into your strategy if you're using the right tech and the right services behind it.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think just to sort of simplify what you're saying there is, don't worry about the stuff that customers already know how to search for. They can already describe certain things quite well.
Exactly.
Don't bother with that part, but get to the parts where they struggle.
Yeah.
So I understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. We will open it up for Q&A.
Best question wins a puppy.
Anyone have any questions? Sure.
We talked about visual search with images. What are your thoughts on visual search using augmented reality?
The question was thoughts on using visual search with augmented reality. That's an interesting one. I think we're certainly not there yet. I think, at least not at Getty Images. I think in general, the customer, what's a natural environment for them to do that kind of a search, right? And so it's great. You can pull up your phone, and we saw. You can take a picture of us here, and you identify a brand. Maybe it's this water bottle. Searching with that now, it relates to what other indexes, or what else we have indexed in that way. I think that just where Getty's going with it a little bit is applying that AR to the images we already have. So less about the search side, but embedding that imagery in different areas. So you can imagine having a picture or a painting behind you. Well, what if that's a Getty Images, and it's up to you. You can change it every day, more on that side. Yeah.
I had a thought on that too. I have a background in digital asset management, so I could see that happening in a dam system where the customer they're a producer of augmented reality, and they want to use an AR image as the search point. yeah, it feels like pixels are pixels. If the computer can see the pixels, then they can find them. But yeah, super interesting. And I could imagine that digital asset management companies are likely thinking about that.
Anyone else?
What kind of challenges do you face with visual searches? Like if you have to search for material like cotton shirt, 100% cotton shirt, is that something that's, how does the image recognition deal with that?
Is that for us or
anyone.
for?
Yeah,
go
so
ahead, Aaron.
I'll be happy to take that one. So texture is definitely a important attribute in the visual search. Now, obviously, let's say in the context of using image recognition to drive attribute tagging, we're not going to be able to give you, the cotton polyester blend.
Right.
It has to be visually present in the actual item, but we have a very good, record of being able to identify the overall, material. If there's some type of texture to it, like a linen shirt or something like that, being able to provide that as one of the factors that comes into play when deciding what's most similar within the retailer's inventory.
And how does the image recognition distinguish between cotton and linen? Like, is there something that in the image that kind of indicates, like, what kind of algorithm indicates
So it's sort of an intangible. That's one of those many intangibles that I was referring to, because I wouldn't say that we're necessarily going to produce only cotton versus other materials that photograph in a similar type of texture. But being able to understand that these are leather or some type of latex versus something that's more of a natural material, and then prioritizing those would definitely be a strong factor within the results that are produced.
Thank you.
One of the, just to add to that, one of the important things about visual recognition is that, at least in my opinion, and in the retail context specifically, taking images from image to text, basically translating them into text and using that as the basis of your results, is not going to produce results that are any more relevant than if the user had to just search for those keywords. So in order to accomplish visual search and make sure that it's producing those relevant results you need, it has to be doing it on an image-to-image basis without regard for any of the metadata, unless it's just being used to like isolate a specific category of, like for instance, a fully dressed model who's really, the PDP is only selling a shirt. Of course, you want to like limit it to results of shirts, but other than that, you shouldn't be using text.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, the mic there.
Hey, I work for HomeDepot.com. So one of the things that is very challenging for us is like when you onboard a product, there's some set of attributes, right? Then you onboard the product and then determining the source of truth, because the attributes might not match what the customers are searching for. So it's literally, the vendor says this is a leather chair, whatever that product is. How do you, and that goes back to what challenges, how do you guys do like with that, establishing that source of truth? Like this is not red, this is like mahogany or whatever attribute that really is. I mean, so can you guys speak a little bit about that?
Well, at Syte, I would say that typically we would be responding to, the colors and the attributes that are present there in the image. So as a significant data point towards helping you to determine that source of truth, it can be used. I don't know if in terms of isolating these, sub colors might be the best use case, but I think having a standardized set of attributes that you can rely on being present on each and every one of your home goods is something that's very, very
with confidence, right? With high confidence.
With high confidence, with about a 93% to 97% confidence.
Thank you.
We still use human in the loop.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, I think you unless you're okay with 1 out of 10 being inaccurate or 2 out of 10, which is I think where technology is at these days, you do need that that human QA still. Yeah.
Absolutely. I would still, where the stakes are high and you want to make sure that every single attribute is correct, you would still want to do some human QA. But when you're dealing with very large volume, that's just not possible. And what we found is that human tagging, while typically it will be much, it'll be 100% accurate in terms of what is tagged, they will still miss some of the variants that could have otherwise existed. So you have to play off of that, and
Thank you very much, guys. That is the end of our session. A couple of us will be around if you have any questions, and hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.